On that note, I want to get to my segment about the exploitation and alienation that people face within the music industry. The music industry is an odd combination of glamour, power, celebrity, and also exploitation through predatory contracts, coercion, and ownership. Like many types of media, while we celebrate the artists, the connection they give us to our emotions and imaginations, the conditions that produce their art are obscured by powerful and complex systems. There's an intimacy that a person feels with an artist they love, something that personalizes them. This can disguise some of the conditions of this industry, but artists have started to speak out. I'd like to take a moment to look at some high-profile examples, starting with Lauryn Hill, who issued this statement on why she withdrew from the industry. Quote, "Having put the lives and needs of other people before my own for multiple years, and having made hundreds of millions of dollars for certain institutions under complex and sometimes severe circumstances, I began to require growth and more equitable treatment, but was met with resistance. I entered into my craft full of optimism, which I still possess, but immediately saw the suppressive force with which the system attempts to maintain its control over a given paradigm. I've seen people promote addiction, use sabotage, blacklisting, media bullying, and other coercion techniques they could to prevent artists from knowing their true value or exercising their full power. These devices of control, no matter how well-intentioned or not, can have devastating outcomes on the lives of people, especially creative types who must grow and exist within a certain environment and according to a certain pace in order to live and create optimally." The statement is long, and many people focus on the more sensational aspects of this, particularly because it was released after Hill was charged with failing to file taxes. But far less people looked at the kinds of conditions it described, conditions that have time and again been at the center of musicians' issues with the industry, from session musicians to huge stars like Prince, Taylor Swift, and Lady Gaga. Now, full disclosure, I used to sing for Lauryn Hill, and I noticed that a lot of the criticism that she got was around measures she took to protect her independence and well-being as an artist. There are more people speaking up about this, and they're attracting less scrutiny than she did at the time. But she was one of the kind of early starters criticizing aspects of the industry, and she was roundly attacked for it. Luckily, that has changed in some ways, but the terrain on which the fight takes place has not. As strange as it may seem, the music industry, whether it knows it or not, has been one of the most vocal about workers controlling the means of production and the fruits of their labor. Part of this is tied to the commercialization of authenticity in the industry. The singer-songwriter who records and distributes their own songs, the mogul who makes it big and starts her own label to help other artists maintain their integrity, or more recently, the artist-owned streaming service. But beyond brand management and authenticity, there's a real critique of the lack of control musicians have over their own content and the conditions of their careers and working life. What they are alluding to are the classic Marxist concepts of exploitation and alienation, and technological change and financialization have exacerbated these tendencies in the industry. Let's listen to Taylor Swift.
Lately, there's been a new shift that has affected me personally and that I feel is a potentially harmful force in our industry. And as your resident loud person, I feel the need to bring it up. And that is the unregulated world of private equity coming in and buying up our music as if it is real estate, as if it's an app or a shoe line. This just happened to me without my approval, consultation, or consent. After I was denied the chance to purchase my music outright, my entire catalog was sold to Scooter Braun's Ithaca Holdings in a deal that I'm told was funded by the Soros family, 23 Capital, and the Carlyle Group. Yet, to this day, none of these investors have ever bothered to contact me or my team directly to perform their due diligence on their investment in me, to ask how I might feel about the new owner of my art, the music I wrote, the videos I created, photos of me, my handwriting, my album designs. And of course, Scooter never contacted me or my team to discuss it prior to the sale, or even when it was announced.
Now, the point here isn't to feel bad for Taylor Swift or any of these other extremely successful musicians. The point is that even at this level of success, you cannot effectively compete with or mitigate the interests of capital. You can be a global superstar, and you're still fighting for ownership over not just your products, but yourself and your identity. It's easier for huge stars to speak up about this because of their profiles, but it doesn't mean it's easier for them to fight it. Most recently, R&B legend Anita Baker has asked fans not to purchase or stream her music as she fights for ownership of her masters. Other artists are fighting individually for more revenue on streaming services, or like Jay-Z, trying to start their own with Tidal. But what has been missing from the discussion is unionization. That is, until recently.
Atlanta don't sound like they'd be down for this rapper strike thing I keep talking about.
Rapper strike? Who? Well, I ain't heard about that. Well, I must have missed that.
Why he don't sound like he fucking with the rapper strike?
I don't know.
You don't think we need a union? A union.
Man, you
should be one of the. You should be like our Derek Fisher or somebody. Come on, Chris Paul.
Yeah, I can be that. They gonna pay me to be the head of that.
I just like that 2 Chainz rotates out of frame for that. But here Joe Budden is talking to 2 Chainz about a rapper's strike over issues around racism in the US, similar to the one staged by the NBA. But other artists have talked about organizing, including Lady Gaga, who claimed in 2016, quote, "We don't have a union as artists. We're just fighting for ourselves." And you can see this in the tactics that they undertake. But the thing is, they do have a union. Musicians are represented by both SAG-AFTRA and AFM. Their membership is extremely limited, in part because the model in the music industry is so complex, with so many people working as freelance workers, and many musicians occupying the role of both boss and employee. The dynamic of the industry means people's roles can shift rapidly from one context to another. The other membership issue is that, as the industry has changed, the unions have failed to connect to the issues faced by those working within it, not for lack of trying. Now it seems more viable for high-profile people, however, to start their own agencies, their own record labels, and make their own venues than to join in organizing the industry. But as Adam Krauthammer, president of AFM's New York chapter, told Rolling Stone, quote, "Income inequality and other issues in the workplace are never going to be addressed by individual musicians alone. Labor is the way forward." I would encourage anyone who's interested to check out that article and this article on Jacobin called "Musicians Can and Should Organize to Improve Their Working Conditions." It gets much more in depth into the conditions of the industry and the history of organizing within it than I can during this segment, but I would strongly encourage anybody who's interested in organizing in the music industry to check those out. One of the most profound and banal aspects of music is that people work together to create a collective expressive product, something shareable, relatable, and communal. Cooperation and emotion are at the heart of this art form. There is a reason why workers' choruses were celebrated as the artistic manifestation of the socialist impulse. The collective acting as an individual, greater than the sum of its parts, the might in the union of people. It is a living dictum, from each according to his ability to each according to his needs. We focus a lot on the possibility of democratic socialism to alleviate and eliminate the brutality and deprivation so many people experience, but it also has the ability to increase connection, joy, and leisure. The music industry has a lesson about the failure of individual responses to collective problems. Often celebrities try to solve it by creating their own companies, using their individual might to push for changes at the margins, or to push for changes within their own contracts. And we should pay attention to these failures because so often the solution that is offered by capitalism mimics the strategies undertaken by the most famous musicians. Don't like the game? Change the players. Jay-Z's Tidal or Taylor Swift's Spotify deal won't change the conditions for the vast majority of musicians whose work is precarious, pay unpredictable, and contracts inscrutable and predatory. Most can't withdraw like Lauryn Hill understandably did. But even those on top are stronger when they work with those on the bottom. Imagine for a second if Anita Baker didn't just have the fans on her side, but every session musician, songwriter, and producer, and seasoned union lawyers to help her fight for her masters. I want to end with this clip from WGA member Howard Gould in the lead up to the writer's strike. The WGA was facing a similar situation as musicians. Technological changes and how people consume their products changed the revenue model, and the writers were left out of this. Here's Gould explaining the stakes of the strike and the power of the union.
Just a personal experience last night. I went on NBC.com, clicked on The Office. You can watch entire episodes of 10, 15 series. Okay? You click on The Office, what do you get? You get a commercial for Fidelity Investments. Then you watch the cold open, and then you get a commercial for Target. They are monetizing these episodes already. Okay? Carlton Hughes was telling me before, Lost does not run a second network rerun. So the writers on that show are not getting the typical nice check that you usually get when you're working on a successful series. That goes right to the internet. They're making money on it. We're not making money on those. We must realize that that's the kind of issue we can't let stand. As the internet becomes it's the way my kids watch TV. They hear about a show, they look for it on the internet. Soon when computers and your TV are connected, that's how we're all going to watch. Okay? Those residuals are going to go from what they are towards zero if we don't make a stand now. And I want to go a step beyond that, which is, this is such a big issue that if they see us roll over on this without making a stand, 3 years from now, they're going to be back for something else. Okay? And I'm gonna tell you something. And these guys will tell you, I might have been the most moderate one up here when we started, but I sat there in the room the first day, and they read us those 32 pages of rollbacks, and what they wanted us to hear was that if you don't give us what you want on the important thing, we're going to come after you for all those other things. But what I heard was, if we give them that thing, they'll still come after us for those other things. And in 3 years, it'll be, we want to revamp the whole residual system. And in another 3 years, it'll be, you know what, we don't really want to fund the health fund the way we've been. And then it'll be pension, and then it'll be credit determination. And there just is that time when everybody has to see this is one where we've just got to stand our ground. That's it.
So I hope Taylor Swift listens to Howard Gould. We can stand our ground, but we can cover a lot more of it collectively.
Wow, that's really interesting. It's so true to see like what is coming for folks in the music industry is coming for creatives across the board, right? Mm-hmm. And how critical, because this is something that we're talking about not just with regards to like music and art, but also with medicine, intellectual property. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting to see who that system benefits today. Right. And it's primarily been those at the very, very, very top of the system, while so many of the people who do the actual work of producing all the things that, we need and make life worth living. Get screwed over even at the top echelons. Yeah,
absolutely. And it's the same in other industries like coders, for instance. They're producing intellectual property. These things are worth, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. And they don't receive residuals that I know of on the code that they're creating. The model that the Writers Guild has put in place, I think is a good roadmap or a blueprint for other industries where it could be applied. And the music industry is interesting because, like you said, you've got these huge profile stars who are just being completely, you know, run down by a system that's set up to protect capital.
Mm-hmm.